The winds of war howled across the endless steppes as the Mongol hordes gathered like storm clouds on the horizon. For centuries they had swept across Asia and Europe, their mounted archers striking terror into the hearts of kingdoms. Now their eyes turned toward the rising Ottoman Empire, a young power that would soon learn the hard lessons of survival against the greatest cavalry force the world had ever known. Sultan Mehmed II, barely 21 years old, stood atop the hill surveying his forces. The weight of empire rested on his young shoulders as he gazed toward the approaching Mongol threat. His advisors whispered concerns about the legendary speed and ferocity of these steppe warriors, but the Sultan's eyes burned with the fire of determination that would one day earn him the title conqueror. The first wave of Mongol horsemen thundered across the plain like a force of nature itself. Their composite bows sang death through the air as they closed the distance with terrifying speed. Each warrior was a master of mounted warfare, trained from birth to fight as one with their horses. The ground trembled beneath thousands of hooves as they bore down on the Ottoman lines. The Ottoman infantry responded with disciplined precision, forming tight squares that had served them well against previous enemies. Their large shields interlocked like a wall of steel while long spears extended outward to meet the charging horsemen. Crossbowmen took careful aim, their weapons slower to reload but more powerful than traditional bows. This would be their first lesson in fighting an enemy unlike any they had faced before. But the Mongols were not like other enemies. Rather than charging directly into the spear wall, they began to circle the Ottoman positions like predators testing their prey. Arrows fell like rain from every direction as the horsemen maintained their distance, using their superior mobility to avoid the deadly spear points while inflicting casualties from beyond reach. The Ottomans realized they faced an entirely new kind of warfare. As suddenly as they had appeared, the Mongol horsemen began to withdraw, melting away across the steppes like mist before dawn. The young Ottoman commander watched in bewilderment, unable to comprehend this strange form of combat. His men tended to the wounded, many struck by arrows that seemed to come from impossible angles. This was not the kind of battle they had trained for in Anatolia's hills. That night in his command tent, Sultan Mehmed examined the captured Mongol equipment by flickering torchlight. The composite bows were masterpieces of engineering, made from layers of wood, horn, and sinew that gave them incredible power and range. The leather armor was both flexible and protective, designed for maximum mobility on horseback. His advisors spoke urgently about adapting their tactics, but the Sultan remained silent, studying every detail with the intensity of a scholar. Dawn brought a new determination to the Ottoman camp as soldiers began training in the Mongol style of warfare. Cavalry units practiced the complex maneuvers they had witnessed, learning to shoot arrows while riding at full gallop. Archers struggled with the unfamiliar techniques, their horses unaccustomed to the rapid pivoting and sudden stops that made Mongol tactics so deadly. Every man understood that their survival depended on mastering these alien skills. Meanwhile in the workshops, Ottoman craftsmen labored to reproduce the Mongol weapons that had proven so devastating. The composite bow required years of training to master its construction, with layers of wood, horn, and sinew carefully glued and bound to create a weapon of incredible power. Each bow took weeks to complete, and the craftsmen worked tirelessly to supply the army with weapons that could match those of their enemies in both range and accuracy. High on a distant hill, a Mongol scout watched the Ottoman preparations with quiet amusement. His weathered face showed understanding of what he witnessed below. These Turkish warriors were trying to learn the ways of the steppe, but he knew that technique alone would not be enough. The Mongols had spent generations perfecting their art of war, and true mastery could not be copied in a few weeks of desperate practice. Days later, the Ottoman cavalry demonstrated their improved skills with a thunderous charge across the open field. Their horses moved in synchronized lines, the riders showing remarkable improvement in their horsemanship. They wore hybrid armor that combined Ottoman traditions with Mongol influences, and their bows were now of superior quality. Sultan Mehmed watched with pride as his men showed they could match their enemies in mobility and speed. But the Mongols were not impressed. As if summoned by some unseen signal, they struck from every direction at once. Warriors appeared from behind rocks and hills where they had been concealed, their horses seeming to materialize from thin air. Arrows came from impossible angles as the coordinated assault overwhelmed the Ottoman defenses. The lesson was clear: superior tactics and coordination mattered more than individual skill. The Ottoman lines broke under the relentless pressure, soldiers scattering across the broken terrain in desperate attempts to escape the pursuing horsemen. Their carefully drilled formations dissolved into chaos as individual survival instincts took precedence over military discipline. Equipment was abandoned and wounded men struggled to keep up with their retreating comrades. This was warfare on terms dictated entirely by their enemies. Alone in his tent that night, Sultan Mehmed spread his maps across the table, studying every detail of the Mongol movements and his own supply situation. The candlelight flickered across his face as he contemplated the harsh lessons learned in battle. His enemies were not just warriors but strategists of unparalleled skill, using terrain and timing to maximum advantage. Victory would require more than copied tactics; it would demand a fundamental change in how his army thought about warfare. Dawn brought new formations as the Ottomans implemented defensive strategies learned from their defeats. Circular wagon forts provided mobile protection while layered infantry positions created overlapping fields of fire. Artillery pieces were positioned to support the cavalry units that would now serve as rapid response forces. The army was transforming itself, adapting to fight on terms that had been foreign just weeks before. Every man understood that survival depended on this evolution. Unexpectedly, a Mongol diplomat arrived under the white flag of parley, his ornate clothing and proud bearing marking him as a man of high status. Sultan Mehmed received him in the formal diplomatic tent, surrounded by his commanders and advisors. The Mongol spoke with measured words, offering terms that revealed both respect for Ottoman resilience and confidence in Mongol superiority. His message was clear: adapt or be destroyed, for the ways of the steppe would not be denied. The scribes worked through the night, their careful script recording every lesson learned from the bitter fighting. New cavalry tactics were documented alongside improvements to supply chains and communication methods. Battle diagrams showed the proper responses to encirclement, while strategic maps detailed the terrain advantages that could be exploited against mounted enemies. Knowledge was becoming the Ottoman Empire's greatest weapon, more valuable than any sword or bow. Weeks of intensive training began to show results as Ottoman cavalry units demonstrated remarkable improvement in their mounted skills. Horses leaped over obstacles with fluid grace while archers fired accurately from the saddle, their coordination improving daily. Multiple training scenarios tested their ability to respond to various tactical situations, building the muscle memory and instinctive reactions that separated professional warriors from amateur soldiers. The transformation was becoming visible to all who watched. As part of the diplomatic exchange, Mongol warriors demonstrated their legendary archery skills for the Ottoman commanders. Their arrows split targets from distances that seemed impossible, striking with accuracy that defied belief. Ottoman observers watched in amazement as the horsemen rode at full gallop, drawing their bows and releasing arrows that found their marks with supernatural precision. The gap between the two armies in terms of mounted warfare expertise remained vast and humbling. The Ottoman supply train moved through the mountain pass with enhanced security measures learned from their previous defeats. Armed escorts positioned themselves at strategic points while scouts patrolled the high ground, watching for signs of ambush. Pack animals carried improved equipment designed for rapid deployment, including lighter artillery pieces and mobile fortifications. Every detail reflected the hard-earned wisdom of fighting against enemies who had mastered the art of surprise and mobility. Young officers spent hours in solitary practice, determined to master the Mongol techniques that had proven so devastating. One particular officer showed exceptional dedication, spending every available moment perfecting his horsemanship and archery skills. His face showed the same determination that had driven the Ottoman Empire to greatness, the understanding that individual excellence would contribute to collective survival. Each arrow loosed and every maneuver practiced brought him one step closer to matching his formidable enemies. Under cover of darkness, Mongol reconnaissance parties moved silently around the Ottoman positions, gathering intelligence with the skill that had made them masters of steppe warfare. Their horses stepped carefully to avoid detection while the warriors observed every detail of the enemy camp. Moonlight revealed their patient surveillance as they noted guard rotations, supply movements, and defensive weaknesses. Information was as valuable as any weapon in their arsenal, and they collected it with the patience of hunters tracking their prey. The Ottoman commanders gathered in formal war council, their expressions grave as they discussed the intelligence reports and strategic options available to them. Maps covered the large table while military plans were carefully examined and debated. The decorated tent provided an appropriate setting for such weighty discussions, but the atmosphere remained tense with the knowledge that their decisions would determine the fate of thousands of soldiers. Every option was scrutinized with the intensity that only life-and-death situations could inspire. The implementation of new tactical formations transformed the Ottoman army into a more flexible and responsive fighting force. Improved cavalry screening protected the infantry formations while artillery pieces were integrated into mobile units that could respond quickly to changing battlefield conditions. Communication networks showed enhanced coordination between different units, with signal flags and mounted messengers maintaining contact across the extended lines. The evolution was remarkable, but the true test would come in battle. The workshops buzzed with activity as craftsmen produced improved military equipment based on the lessons learned from their Mongol enemies. Lighter armor balanced protection with mobility while more powerful composite bows increased the range and accuracy of Ottoman archers. Specialized tools and quality control processes ensured that every piece of equipment met the highest standards. The marriage of traditional Ottoman craftsmanship with Mongol innovations was creating weapons and armor that would serve the empire well in future conflicts. When the Mongols attacked again, their coordination had improved to match their already formidable skills. Multiple waves approached from different directions while maintaining perfect communication through signal flags and horn calls. Their movements showed the professional military precision that came from generations of warfare, each warrior understanding his role in the larger tactical scheme. The Ottoman forces watched with grudging respect even as they prepared to meet this latest demonstration of steppe warfare mastery. For the first time, Ottoman forces successfully countered a Mongol attack using their adapted tactics and improved coordination. Cavalry units executed maneuvers that would have been impossible weeks earlier while infantry maintained the disciplined formations that anchored their defensive strategy. Artillery support coordinated with cavalry charges in ways that showed the tactical evolution taking place within the army. The hard lessons of previous defeats were finally bearing fruit in battlefield success. Even in victory, the Ottomans showed the humanitarian traditions that would become hallmarks of their empire. Wounded Mongol warriors received medical treatment from Ottoman field surgeons, who applied traditional remedies and careful techniques to save lives regardless of nationality. The scene revealed the civilized face of warfare that distinguished professional armies from mere raiders. These enemies, once faceless threats, now showed their humanity in suffering and healing. Sultan Mehmed reviewed the battle reports with obvious satisfaction, noting the dramatic improvement in his force's ability to counter Mongol tactics. Casualty reports showed significantly reduced losses while tactical assessments documented the successful implementation of adapted warfare techniques. His senior commanders shared his pride in their army's evolution, understanding that they had learned lessons that would serve the empire well in future conflicts across their expanding territories. Advanced training sessions revealed the remarkable progress made by Ottoman cavalry units in mastering mounted archery techniques. Their accuracy improved with each practice session as they learned to draw, aim, and fire while controlling their horses through complex maneuvers. Multiple targets were engaged with increasing proficiency while the warriors developed the instinctive reactions that separated master archers from amateurs. The transformation from traditional heavy cavalry to mobile mounted archers was nearly complete. The Mongol delegation returned to their camp with respectful acknowledgement of the remarkable improvements shown by their Ottoman opponents. Their horses moved with the same grace and confidence that marked all steppe warriors, but their expressions showed recognition of the serious challenge now posed by the Turkish forces. Diplomatic protocols were observed while both sides maintained military readiness, understanding that respect did not diminish the fundamental competition between their peoples. The Ottoman army on the march presented a picture of military efficiency that would have been impossible before their encounters with the Mongols. Improved logistics and supply systems ensured that soldiers moved with adequate provisions while mobile fortifications provided protection during extended campaigns. Support units maintained equipment and provisions with the kind of organization that reflected hard-earned experience. The transformation was complete, creating a force capable of meeting any enemy on equal terms. Senior Ottoman commanders dedicated themselves to understanding every aspect of Mongol warfare through careful study of captured military manuals and translated documents. Their intense concentration revealed the scholarly approach that would become characteristic of Ottoman military leadership. Illuminated manuscripts detailed battle strategies and tactical innovations that had made the Mongols so successful, while marginal notes showed the Turkish adaptations being developed to counter these techniques. Knowledge truly was power in this conflict between civilizations. The formal peace agreement between Ottoman and Mongol leaders marked the end of their military confrontation with all the elaborate protocol befitting such a historic occasion. Rich clothing and formal decorations honored the significance of the moment while military escorts maintained security for both delegations. The ceremony acknowledged the mutual respect that had developed between these great powers, each having learned valuable lessons from their encounters. The golden sunset seemed to bless this moment of reconciliation between former enemies. Following the peace agreement, young Ottoman soldiers received instruction from Mongol military advisors in an unprecedented educational exchange that would benefit both civilizations. Traditional teaching methods were combined with practical demonstrations as the steppe warriors shared their expertise in mounted warfare and tactical coordination. The scene represented a remarkable transformation from enemies to teachers and students, with both sides recognizing that cooperation could achieve more than conflict ever could. The integrated Ottoman-Mongol military unit demonstrated the successful fusion of different warfare traditions, with Turkish infantry working seamlessly alongside Mongol cavalry in coordinated operations. Commanders from both traditions coordinated combined operations with the kind of cooperation that came from mutual respect and shared experience. The training showed how the hard lessons of conflict had evolved into the valuable wisdom of cooperation, creating a military force that combined the best elements of both civilizations. Sultan Mehmed addressed the joint military assembly with Mongol leaders, his speech emphasizing the unity that could be achieved through shared military heritage and mutual respect. His words resonated with soldiers from both armies who had learned to see past their former enmity toward a common understanding of honor and duty. The ceremony marked not just the end of conflict but the beginning of a new era in which the lessons of warfare would be used to build rather than destroy, to unite rather than divide. The military academy classroom buzzed with international energy as Ottoman and Mongol instructors collaborated to teach combined warfare techniques to students from multiple nations. Detailed educational materials and tactical models illustrated the advanced curriculum that drew from both traditions, creating a synthesis of military knowledge that surpassed either civilization's individual achievements. The scene represented the ultimate victory of wisdom over conflict, as former enemies became partners in educating the next generation of military leaders. The peaceful border region between Ottoman and Mongol territories showed the remarkable transformation that had occurred since their military encounters ended in mutual understanding. Integrated markets bustled with trade while shared cultural celebrations brought communities together in harmony. Military patrols from both nations maintained security through coordinated efforts, ensuring that the peace would endure for generations to come. The hard lessons of warfare had taught both peoples the greater value of cooperation and mutual prosperity. An elderly Ottoman veteran shared his stories with young soldiers, his weathered face reflecting the wisdom earned through years of combat experience against the Mongol hordes. His tales of hard-fought battles and bitter lessons learned painted vivid pictures of warfare as it had truly been, not romanticized but honest in its portrayal of fear, courage, and ultimate triumph through adaptation. The young listeners hung on every word, understanding that these stories contained the kind of knowledge that could only be earned through the crucible of conflict. The Ottoman Empire stood stronger than ever, its expanded influence and military strength reflecting the hard lessons learned through its encounters with the Mongol hordes. Fortified cities and disciplined armies demonstrated the evolution that had taken place, transforming a regional power into a world empire capable of meeting any challenge. The golden sunset seemed to bless this moment of triumph, but more importantly, it illuminated the wisdom that had been gained through conflict and the strength that came from learning to adapt, overcome, and ultimately thrive in the face of the greatest challenges any military force had ever faced.